What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now today I'm back with some brand new stories, this time from r/best of Redditor updates. If you've been watching and listening to my content over the past 10 days or so, you will have seen it's been mostly movie length episodes. I know a lot of you guys love them, but a lot of you guys want newer stories more regularly, and I fully understand that. The reason there haven't been any is because I've been on holiday in Mauritius with my family, but now, as you can tell, I'm back. So without further ado, let's get in to these brand new stories. Starting with this one, in which a man wonders if he's in the right or the wrong for leaving a drunk girl alone at the bar. Am I the jerk for leaving a drunk girl alone at a bar? This involves me, a 32-year-old man, Matt, who is 30, Matt's girlfriend, Lisa, who is 28, and her friend, Jane, who's in her 20s. 2 days back, it was Matt's birthday. He invited me and a few of our friends to a small birthday dinner at this restaurant, which is also kind of a bar. The plan was to eat, drink, and chill. Matt's girlfriend, Lisa, also invited a few of her own friends. It was a group of around 15 people. I mostly hung out with my own friends and Matt's, and Lisa's friends with her. One of Lisa's friends, Jane, kept trying to talk to me throughout the evening. It was kind of awkward for me as I'm an introvert, and the conversations with her felt like they were going nowhere. At around 12, I decided to head back home. Jane came up to me and told me that even she wanted to go back home. I was like, okay, cool. Then she asked me if I could drop her off at her house. I asked her where she lived, and she told me some address that wasn't even on my way, so I told her to ask someone else to drop her off. She asked me if I was sure I couldn't, and I was like, yep, absolutely. Jane was visibly drunk, but I figured she had like a group of friends, so somebody would give her a ride. Also, I was tired as frick, and I just wanted to go back and sleep. The next morning, I woke up to some very angry messages from Lisa. She was furious at me for leaving Jane alone at the party. Apparently, they all assumed since I was hanging out with Jane, I would have the decency to drop her back home. I told her that I talked to Jane for a total of like 15 minutes in the entire 3 to 4 hours, and I don't understand why everyone wanted me to be her personal chauffeur. All of her friends obviously think I'm a huge jerk. Matt has decided to stay neutral on this. Okay, let's jump into the comments before we get to the update on this one. Somebody asked OP, what does Jane think about this? Apparently, says OP, even Jane thinks I'm a jerk for not dropping her home. I'm actually kind of stumped at her behavior, to be honest. Somebody else asked about OP's feelings or lack thereof for Jane. I'm pretty sure Jane is in her early 20s. Part of the reason the conversations were awkward with her was because she sounded like a kid to me. I felt there was a generational gap. Hooking up was out of the question. Then OP said to another commenter, it felt like a generation gap to me. I'm about to be 33, and I'm guessing Jane is younger than 25. And then finally, somebody said, Matt doesn't seem like much of a friend, bud. But OP said, I feel Matt is just trying to not annoy his girlfriend. I don't blame him, honestly. Yeah, that is exactly the impression I got when OP said that Matt has decided to stay neutral on this. Probably pretty sensible from Matt, although yeah, maybe not the best for OP. Alright, let's get into the update for this one. This was posted 2 months later. Lisa entirely stopped talking to me after the incident. Not that we were close before, but she would sometimes forward reels, etc. on Instagram. Matt was also being distant, but whatever, I got busy with work and I forgot about it. A week after the said incident, Matt texted me saying he needed a favor. He said he wanted me to apologize to Jane. I was like, heck no, I'm not apologizing to her. Matt said that he knows that it's not my fault at all, and he's tried explaining this to Lisa, but she's adamant that I was a jerk to Jane and made Lisa look bad in front of her. Apparently, Lisa gave Matt an ultimatum, saying that if I don't apologize to her and Jane, Matt needs to cut me off. This honestly was some high school BS that Lisa was partaking in, and it was very toxic. And I told Matt the same thing, but he was really desperate and pathetically sad, so I agreed to text Jane an apology. But this apparently made Jane think that I'm interested in her or something, and I felt like an absolute idiot for agreeing to apologize. She started texting me a lot. In the beginning, I gave monosyllabic replies, but then her texting increased a lot, and I straight up hit her with, please stop texting me, I'm not interested. This hurt her, and she snitched about this to Lisa. Again, high school BS. And Lisa started threatening Matt to go no contact with me. They fought about this non-issue for like a week, and this made Matt realize that Lisa is actually really toxic, and they broke up. Jane hasn't tried contacting me either. Life is peaceful for the time being. The end. And somebody has commented on this. It sounds like Jane wasn't the only one causing drama and being toxic. I'm glad you were able to cut out the negativity in your life. And OP replied, I'm glad Matt got back to his senses, to be honest. Okay, so there we go. A lot to unpack there, but I'm pretty sure I know what's going on. And the first thing that's obvious to say is that OP did absolutely nothing wrong here. Just because you chatted to someone for a few minutes at a party and they asked to go home with you or, at least have a lift back to their house with you, it doesn't mean that you have to do it at all, especially given the fact that it's not on your way home either. Yeah, there's no reason at all for you to give someone a lift if you don't want to. Like, it would have been a nice thing to do, sure, but you didn't want to, that's completely fine. But yes, I'm pretty confident that what's going on here is that Jane is just into you, my friend. Simple as that. She just fancies you. And that is why she chatted to you loads. That is why she wanted to have a lift back with you. That is why she's probably pretty devastated as well when you said no, and was also messaging you loads when you then apologized to her. It's pretty obvious to me that she just fancies you. Simple as that. But moving on from that, how toxic is she and Lisa? It's crazy. Like, demanding an apology from you for something that you should never have to apologize for is mental. The title of this one, Am I the Jerk for Leaving a Drunk Girl Alone at a Bar, is a little bit misleading, let's be honest, because it's not really what happened. I mean, technically yes, but you did leave her with all her friends, and I don't know, like, she wouldn't have showed up that day expecting to get a lift back from you. She would have had plans, right, to go back by herself or with her friends later on that night. So yeah, it's clear she's just very into you, and I agree with you. It's good that Matt got back to his senses, and maybe this event showed him that Lisa is very toxic and her friends are too. And clearly he doesn't want to be around that sort of person for the long term. Respect. Now moving on to our next post. Am I the jerk for telling my sister's boyfriend to get out after he refused to eat the meal I cooked? So here is what happened. I am a 28-year-old woman, and I invited my sister, who was 25, and her boyfriend, who was 26, over for dinner. I love cooking, and I'd spent hours preparing this fancy meal. Homemade pasta, a slow-cooked ragu, a salad, and a tiramisu for dessert. I was really proud of it and excited to have them over. Can I just say at this point, if you are hosting another dinner party in future, can I be invited? That sounds divine. When they arrived, everything was fine at first. We sat down and I started serving the food. Her boyfriend, let's call him Steve, stared at the pasta for a moment, then looked at me and said, I don't eat carbs. At first, I thought he was joking, but nope, he was dead serious. He goes on about how he's super into keto and carbs are the enemy. Okay, fine, that's his choice. But when I offered to make him a salad or something else on the spot, he refused and said that I should have known about his diet beforehand. This is where it gets weird. He then pulls out a small Tupperware container from his bag filled with what looked like boiled chicken and broccoli and starts to eat it at my dinner table while the rest of us are trying to enjoy the meal I spent hours making. I was stunned and honestly kind of insulted. I told him it was rude to bring his own food without mentioning it to me beforehand, and he should have at least given me a heads up. He then goes off about how people need to respect his dietary choices and that I was being controlling by not accommodating his needs. At this point, I'd had enough. I told him, if you can't eat what's served and won't even let me make something else, then maybe you should just get out. He stood up, says something like, I'm just trying to be healthy, grabbed his Tupperware and walked out. My sister stayed for a bit, but eventually left too, saying I overreacted. Now my sister's mad at me, saying I embarrassed her boyfriend and made them both feel unwelcome. My mum thinks I should apologise, but my friends are on my side, saying Steve was being incredibly rude. Am I the jerk for telling him to get out? This, honestly, before we even get into any comments here, is one of the most cut and dry Am I the Jerk posts of all time. Obviously you're not OP. Now somebody in the comments down below has said your sister didn't give you a heads up about his diet, and I agree, it's very, very odd that neither your sister or her boyfriend told you beforehand and just expected you to either know or for you to just not produce food with any carbs in it. I mean, carbs are a staple of most diets. It's very weird. OP says, honestly, no, she didn't. I'm not sure if she even knew how serious he was about the whole keto thing because she never mentioned it. She eats pretty much anything, so I assumed he was the same. But even if she had, I feel like it still would have been polite for him to at least say something beforehand instead of just showing up with his own meal. I would have happily made something keto friendly if I had known. And that right there is the entire point. There's nothing wrong with being on any sort of diet, to be fair. If you want to do it, go for it. Keto is very popular these days, for good reason, I suppose. It works for some people. But the problem is, if you just rock up to someone's gaff for dinner and you don't tell them that you can't eat carbs, then obviously that's extremely rude. How on earth are they supposed to know that? And yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a carb-free meal, and I'm sure, as OP has said, they would have happily made it for their sister's boyfriend if he had told her beforehand. But just rocking up without saying that, and then just producing your own Tupperware so you knew you were going to do that anyway, is crazy rude. Anyway, let's get into the update. This came 6 days later. Well, buckle up, because things have escalated in a way I never expected. After my initial post, I figured things would calm down once my sister had time to cool off. But spoiler alert, they did not. So, the day after I told Steve to leave, my sister texted me saying they want to talk things through at a family dinner. Maybe at a neutral restaurant where we could hash it out like adults. Nope. Instead, my sister invites my parents, my brother, and Steve's parents to this dinner at my parents' house, turning it into some kind of weird intervention. I show up thinking it will just be a casual conversation, but the moment I walk in, Steve's mum, let's call her Carol, is already going off about how Steve has always had special dietary needs and how people who care about him should respect his boundaries. The woman acts like the guy has a life-threatening allergy, not a trendy diet. My mum is sitting there looking super uncomfortable, while my dad is just quietly sipping his beer, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. So, Carol starts listing off Steve's dietary restrictions, and she's acting like I personally offended the whole keto community by serving pasta. Then, brace yourselves, Carol pulls out a folder. Yes, a literal folder with printouts. She hands one to me, one to my mum, and one to my dad. I'm flipping through this thing, and it's full of Steve's dietary guidelines, suggested meal plans, and even a list of keto-friendly restaurants we could go to in the future. What is going on here? At this point, I'm doing everything I can not to laugh, but it gets worse. Steve pipes up and says he's willing to forgive me for, quote, disrespecting his lifestyle if I agree to host a redo dinner where I follow his dietary restrictions to the letter. He says this will prove that I'm serious about making amends and respecting his needs going forward. I thought he was joking, but no, he was dead serious. He even pulled out his phone to show me some keto recipe apps that I, quote, might find helpful. I was in total shock. My sister, by the way, said absolutely nothing during all of this, just staring at her plate like she wanted to disappear. My mum, bless her, tries to smooth things over by suggesting we all just eat whatever we want when we're together, but Carol snaps. It's not that simple. She says that in their family, they all follow keto together, and that is why Steve is so passionate about it. Imagine being passionate about a diet, by the way. What? At this point, I've had enough. I stood up and said, look, I'm not redoing the dinner. I'm not making anyone a special keto feast. If Steve can't eat what I cook, that's fine, but bringing his own meal to my dinner without even telling me was disrespectful, and I'm not apologizing for feeling that way. And then, this is where it gets absolutely bonkers. Steve's dad stands up, points at me, and says, this is exactly why Steve doesn't trust women to understand him. They always make it about themselves. The whole room went silent. My dad finally spoke up, saying, I think it's time for you all to leave, and started walking towards the door, basically escorting Steve's parents out. Steve and my sister stayed behind, but Steve was furious. He started yelling about how families should support each other, and then accused me of trying to sabotage their relationship because I'm jealous of what they have. At that point, I just walked out and left the whole mess behind. Here's the kicker though. A couple of days later, my sister called me and told me that she and Steve were taking a break because she needed time to think. Apparently, this whole keto fiasco was the last straw in a long list of controlling behavior from Steve. She didn't realize just how bad it was until the whole family saw it play out at dinner. She even told me that Steve had been trying to get her to follow his diet for months, but she was hiding snacks in her car just to get a break from all the keto madness. Oh my goodness, that really is controlling. So now Steve's gone full radio silent. My sister is staying with me for the time being, and I'm still getting passive-aggressive texts from Carol about how hurt Steve is and how he's just misunderstood. Honestly, I'm just glad my sister is finally seeing how controlling this guy was. Wow, that is really insane and bordering on abusive, to be honest. Forcing your partner to follow the same diet as you is ridiculous, especially when it's a keto diet, which is a diet that has a lot of, in my opinion, pretty negative side effects. I'm not sure I'd necessarily recommend keto to people. I've done quite a lot of research on keto, to be fair. It's something that I thought about doing like a while ago, just trying it out. But I'm just not sure that I would recommend it, knowing what I know now. I just do think that carbs are a very, very important part of a diet. I know once you go into ketosis and you're getting energy from different sources, it's meant to be sort of similar. I'm not sure about that. I just do think that carbs are very, very important for giving you energy. And apparently when you start going into ketosis, or before you go into ketosis, you just feel completely awful for a good few days, like just rough, no energy, headaches, etc. I don't know if that's the most healthy thing to go through for your body, but maybe that's because I do a lot of exercise and I know that I do need carbs to fuel myself. I don't know about that. But yeah, let me know down below if you've ever done keto. I know it works for some people. I'm just not sure it's the best sustainable long-term diet. And that is completely unrelated to what I've seen here. Like, as in, that has no relevance, or the fact that Steve is such a madman and Carol is so crazy. There's no bearing on my thoughts on ketosis. But let's move on to them now. Goodness me. Once again, like the previous story, the fact that it's taken something like this to show your sister how crazy her partner is probably a bit weird. There were clear red flags before this, but again, like the first story, it's a good thing that they're broken up now, because Steve is just insane. To be honest, like thinking about this now, I kind of think that your sister OP didn't tell you beforehand, because she probably was just like desperate for a keto-free meal for once, or a non-keto meal. Like the thought of pasta or something just with carbs was so tempting to her that she didn't want to risk that in any sort of way by informing you. So she was just like, oh no, really? Oh, I should have told you, man. And she's just scranning her pasta, like delighted in the corner. But yeah, I feel really bad for her. But as I said, it's a good thing that she is done with Steve now. But there we go. That's going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Couple of differing stories, but with similar outcomes. Good outcomes, I think you'd agree. Let me know your thoughts, as always, on these two stories down below. And I will catch you on the next one.